Hello everyone, my name is Utkarsh. I will be guiding you through the process of writing a research paper or a review paper in general. Okay, so initially, I'll just address the agenda of this meeting, like the key takeaways, what you will understand after attending this lecture, understanding initiating a research work, the initiation, the motivation, what you require, not that kind of motivation like what Sandeep Maheshwari does. Okay, so motivation in the sense like you need a problem statement to start a research work. So how to find a problem statement, how to understand. Okay, you might understand within this lecture like how to do it. That's a very basic thing. I'll just tell you like usually what happens, like if you are interested in some domain of research, for example, my domain is engineering, composites and like composite materials. Okay, google's I'll go to Google Scholar directly. For example, I want to work on aluminium metal matrix composites. Like now you might feel like this is very complicated, but actually no. Okay, I'm just giving this for an example. Okay, I'll just come with humanities example as well. Okay, now I'm searching aluminium metal matrix composites, number one. And now it shows me like most of the papers have aluminium metal matrix composites. So yeah, topics are clashing everywhere. So what should we do now? Like we have all those like research papers in Google Scholar available from 2014, 1985. So you need to become a little specific about it. Aluminium metal matrix composites in what? So you can have a problem statement, like you can search for keywords. Okay, then using those keywords you can make a problem statement. For example, I want to work in ultrasonic welding. I will search and I will try to find the relevant papers. Now see, this is one of my papers in ultrasonic welding. It's already there. And if you want to work on this, sorry, you already have a paper in that. Okay, so now your next step should be to become a little more specific, or you either just change the process. Okay, now in case of humanities, now if you search for educational psychology, now this is a very general domain. Okay, now educational psychology comma, in like there are various topics, saturated topics, and humanities is currently oversaturated. Every day you might be finding a lot of articles. Okay, so it's not like the technical domain, but mainly uh, in educational psychology, what things you want to focus. For example, you can talk about children in school, like disabled children, for educational psychology for disabled children. Now you search for it, you will find the keywords. Okay, so you can see like there are a good amount of papers in this. Like the first 10 papers have some good research. So yeah, this is one possible topic for making a review paper, but research has to be very specific. For example, you can see educational psychology and the effectiveness of inclusive education mainstreaming. Like your research topic has to be very very to the point. Okay, so that way you can make one problem statement. After coming up with the problem statement, obviously you would know what are your keywords, you have to now search the papers. Okay, now finding a topic, we found a topic. Now decide the keywords. After deciding the keywords, what we have to do is like we have to download some most relevant papers. You can just find some papers on Sci-Hub. Okay, see, Sci-Hub is a Chrome extension. You might have to download it separately. Okay, just like this, sci-hub.st. Please keep this link with you always, because sometimes what happens if you go to Google Scholar normally, you might not be able to access all the research papers or review papers. In most of the cases, it will ask you to pay. So usually what happens in Sci-Hub, you search your keywords. For example, educational, psychology, and disabled children. Okay. So in usual case, what happens? It will redirect you to Google Scholar. Okay. And you might encounter this type of interface here a little bit in Russian, and here below you can see Sci-Hub, which I have shown you already. This interface, but currently it's not loading, so I'll just go with this. Okay, for example, you have this paper. You might usually not get to access this in normal case. So what you can do is like just click the most relevant paper you want. For example, I'll just go to some 2017 paper. Okay, now I'll search for some paper which is not available anywhere. Like in normal case, if you click this link, you won't be able to find this paper available to download. Okay, so but in usual case, like in Sci-Hub, you can find the papers. Like just by clicking the link, it will take you to a new interface where you can download the papers. Just like this kind of interface you may encounter. Here you can find your paper, you can download it, and this is the Sci-Hub logo below which this written name. Okay, this sentence or some phrase, you might think it is a phrase or something, but no, it's not a sentence or a phrase. It's the citation format, a formal manner to cite a paper in references. You might have done some projects where you refer some content from websites, and but in references you just write the website link and nothing else. So that's the like the most commonly mistaken format you ever usually do. Okay, so this is the correct format. APA format is universal format. Okay, I'll show you that also. This is the Sci-Hub format, APA with DOI link. Okay, so if suppose some papers you might not be able to access on Sci-Hub. Okay, for example, let's search for this if this is accessible. Some papers are really not accessible, so sometimes what happens, you may have to click the double comma. Like under every search result, I'm just expanding, you can see this double comma. Just click this APA format. There will be 5 different formats available in Google Scholar directly. Okay, so you can just click the double comma, select APA format, copy it and paste it in your document as applicable. Okay, now after downloading the document and how to find the citation, I have explained you. Okay, citation work should be done in the end when you are writing the theory, so that's really not a big deal initially. But yes, then after, like there are multiple ways you can access all the research papers. Sci-Hub I have explained you just now. Library Genesis is also one alternative, but it's quite complicated to use. Okay. Google Scholar is always there. Okay. Sci-Hub is like overlapping extension over Google Scholar. Okay. So that you can download all the relevant papers. And then comes institutional access. There are institutions like universities provide you free access. For example, in Flibnet, Shibboleth, Open Access, MyLoft. In India, most of the universities have Inflibnet, and IITs usually use Shibboleth, and some private universities and government universities, and also some laboratories like DRDO labs and CSIR labs in India use MyLoft. Okay, and also Open Athens. Like Shibboleth is the most common, and Inflibnet, I haven't mentioned it here, but Inflibnet is one of the most common gateways. You can ask your librarian from your university. I am in VIT University, so I have VIT's university access. It's called VIT's e-gateway, egateway.vit.ac.in. You can only access if you are a VIT student, and you should have a VIT's institutional Gmail ID. So even for your access, usually you will be having your own college mail ID to access these kind of services. Okay, so you might have to contact your own libraries. For example, in VIT's e-gateway, I'll just show you some features of this gateway. This is just like an identity saver in one way. Like, this will take you to one IP address, and you can access databases. Now it shows me all the possible electronic journals I can access. For example, one of the most popular, IEEE, then Science Direct, then everyone knows about Springer. So we have access to these journals. You can see in the top right, brought to you by VIT University. You can start searching for keywords, and then you can find the relevant papers. And in usual case, if you go to these journal pages without any institutional access or identity service, then you might not be able to access some journals, some journal papers. Now, for example, I'm just searching within Elsevier. Okay, this is Elsevier only. In most cases, you will never find this download PDF option. If you go for a normal case, I'll just show you. For example, you will require an identity for sure. Identity service provider, which are like Shibboleth or your university's access. Mhm. Okay, fine. Let's leave that. Not very important. Okay. So you having institutional access is an edge. Okay. So now next, like, you found the papers, you downloaded the papers, I have explained you about institutional access. Now what? Like, specific number of papers. Okay. Now there are two types of papers which usually academic students write. Okay. For, like, I am an engineering student, so I will tell you about most of the engineering related and relevant papers, scientific work which has been done. Okay, so in usual case, there are two types: research papers and review papers. Review papers are like reviewing the current technology and giving your own perception using the current literature. Okay, current literature will include around 100 to 200 papers related to that technology or related to that branch or the case. Okay, and then comes research papers, what everyone wants to do at least once in their engineering or bachelor's career. Okay, so usually research papers require on in lab time, like in lab hours, and also there can be on ground survey. Okay, for example, if you are working in psychology, you might have to conduct interviews to understand the perception. The doctors also do an on ground survey sometimes, or they report some case studies. Case studies are a different category of papers which are published in journals. Okay, so what happens in case studies? They report like very unique cases, like this patient had some unique illness which should be diagnosed. For example, in China, they wrote a case study regarding COVID-19 and tried to publish in a journal, but mostly they were rejected or deemed to be false. So, in politics aside, but yeah, that way the case studies are to be published. They have to be peer reviewed. Okay, I'll explain you what is peer review at a later stage. Now, after understanding all these things, now what should be the general template for any paper? So, I'll show you one of my papers which was published. So, like, you should have a generalized template, like what I will be giving you. Okay, like this is a review paper actually, but in research, there is a small difference only. It's comparatively smaller than a review paper and is crisp. Okay, like not beating around the bush. Now, see, the paper starts with an abstract. Okay, just after your names and the topic, the first paragraph in any paper is abstract. Abstract is like a trailer to the movie. Okay, so this is the trailer, and later comes the whole movie. Just saying, for an example, abstract should be including like what is the plot of your work, like what, on what basis, on what specific task you are working currently in this paper, and what is to be expected. Okay, the expected outcome, like what you should be discussing, what you should be working on, and what are the intermediaries within this review or research. So you have to be very concise in each and every sentence of abstract. It should be around 150 to 300 words abstract only. Okay, so after abstract comes introduction, where you should be including like 1 to 2 pages of basic introduction, like evolution of that process. In some cases this might be applicable, understanding the current progresses, understanding the requirement of this review, like understanding the requirement of the review, that this should be the last paragraph, and what this review will be addressing. These two things are to be included in the last paragraph. This will set the narrative of the whole paper. Okay, and also same in research paper, the last paragraph of your introduction is always the one which sets the narrative for the paper. Like sometimes what happens, your topic is very very broad. Okay, like it has so many things to cover, and it's really not possible to cover everything in less time. Okay, so you have to set your narrative in your introduction, the last paragraph, like you are working on these specific tasks only, and your topic should also be mentioning a little bit about it. For example, I'm just working modern contemporary progresses in ultrasonic welding of aluminium metal matrix composites. Okay, for some this topic might be highly irrelevant, but still I'll explain you in very simple words. So ultrasonic welding of aluminium. Okay, just understand that. Like, there are lots of papers in which ultrasonic welding of aluminium occurs. Okay, but what about ultrasonic welding of aluminium metal matrix, which has mixture of metals and mixture of different composites? Okay, so your topic is very specific, and your last paragraph of the paper sets your agenda. The last two or one paragraphs. Okay, so after introduction, you come to the details of the process or the literature review. Okay, both things are applicable. Okay, so now within the details of the process or literature review, I'll show you one of my other papers in which I have done this in an excellent manner. In usual case, the literature review section includes all the details you have collected regarding the modern progresses in the field you are focusing on. Okay, so in the literature survey, you have to include most of like diagrams, flowcharts, and tabulations if applicable. Tabulations are highly important if your paper is a review paper, but in research work you have to give some explanation regarding the progress in your field of research. Okay, for example, you are working on educational psychology for disabled children. So, like, if your topic is very specific, okay, now if you say for in the region of Africa or in the region of Tamil Nadu, okay, so your work becomes very specific and you find those papers which are relevant to that, like in Tamil Nadu, or how many disabled kids are there, and what are the educational psychology related papers you will find out, and you will address everything over here. Like, currently these progresses have been done by these many research papers, these many researchers. Okay, and you can include graphical representation, figures, diagrams, and flowcharts. The tabulation is highly important regarding what are the statistics, what are the applicable details, so that like the work of readers should be easy. Like, you have to keep these things as sorted as you can. Okay, because not everybody has enough time to read the whole paper. If like these figures sometimes help understand the readers immediately, like we don't have to like keep them very in a boring format. Okay, for example, you might be studying some subject you hate, and when you start reading the textbook and it contains no diagrams, no nothing, just plain black and white book, you will end up sleeping. Simple as that, you will end up sleeping. So including these kind of diagrams, including these kind of tables sometimes decreases the effort of the reader, and that's one of the most important thing. Like, as a reader also, you will have to assess your paper, whatever you write. Okay, so that's one important thing. And then after understanding the process comes methodology, which is not included in this review paper. Okay, so what happens in research paper, methodology will include all the details of your work. Okay, where you discuss like these things have been implemented, this formula has been used, this equipment was used. Okay, every single detail regarding the research. Or in psychology related research, if you are doing personal interviews, you have to include the details, like what is the sample size of the population, what are the details, and what are the region where we have focused, and what are their conditions. Like, that can be a graphical representation, flowchart regarding the process, how you have interviewed, what were the questions you have asked. So these things matter. Okay, then after that comes results and discussions, where you discuss briefly regarding your findings in research, your findings in even in review. The longest part in your paper is results and discussions, where you include most of your important details, important findings. Okay, just like this, results and discussion. And you can make multiple subsections as applicable regarding your research work. Like in educational psychology, like this, you can highlight the region, like in the statistics regarding the region, the interpretation, what you have found. Your conclusions will come after the results and discussions. Okay, summary and conclusions, where you will be including your own perception. Like, yes, these were the findings, these were the possible scenarios. Like, summary and conclusions are usually two different sections, but in this case, this is a review, so everything is included in one. Okay, so in usual case this happens. Like, summary is different, where you tell about the best case and the worst case, and in conclusions you tend to give the future possibilities, conclusions and future directions. Like, usually this is the case. Okay, so this way is what you say, the basic flow chart, and the basic flow. I'll just show you once. Like, generalized manuscript, sorry. So now experimentation work and its types is just simple, like interviews, on ground survey, and like laboratory based work. Okay, so these are the experimentation work and types which usually take place to do research. Okay, and Google Forms are completely like rejected by research journals in the name of research. Okay, so you better avoid using Google Forms and rather do some authentic research work. Okay, or else using Google Forms will become a joke or mockery of research community in one way. Okay, and no journals will accept your paper like on the basis of Google Forms. They will ask you for the basis, like how you have done. They might ask you for proofs, like how is this possible. Okay, now I'll just tell you that, like, how you are to use your literature surveys and how to write the theory. I have told you about manuscript template and experimentation and the basic requirements. Okay, now in literature survey, what usually happens, you have to make a summary of each and every paper, like what this paper consists. Okay, for example, if it's a review paper, okay, this example will be applicable in research as well, but only thing is the papers will be lesser than in a review for research. Okay, in review, like there are 100 to 200 papers. For example, there are 100 papers and 4 members in one team. Now, member A, B, C, and D, they will be equally given 25 papers, and I will ask them to do the summaries for each. Okay, now after, like, why I'm asking them to do just 25 and why not 100 of all the 100 papers? This is because I'm just trying to cut the time by like 3/4 time. Okay, sorry. What I mean is, like, I'm just trying to decrease the amount of effort to be done for the whole paper. Okay, so the person A will finish his summaries. He will write his summaries and share with the group. Okay, like this is the paper title, this is the paper citation, and under it the summary of that paper. And then for all those 25 papers, that person will write important points which is relevant to the topic. Okay, now with that, the 25 papers, everyone will be sending their summaries for 25 papers each, and they can read each other's work instead of reading the whole paper. Like, if the paper, some papers are like 20 pages, some papers are like 40 to 50 pages, who will read them? Okay, so division of work and getting the summaries done within time with relevant details, it will ultimately help you. Okay, now using each other's summary, you can read them like within 200 to 400 words, max to max 600 words, your paper is summarized with important details in it. Now you can use them to write the theory. And just the way I have shown you in the manuscripts, just like in this, you can make tabulations using your literature survey, or you can revisit the paper while writing your paper. That's also not a problem. That's always the case. Usually you have to revisit some papers, or else you might end up getting confused. Okay, so yeah. So back to the presentation, the further processes after manuscript completion. Okay, so this is one important part. Like after you write your manuscripts, okay, like this way you wrote the manuscripts and you gave all the references. Yes, one more thing I forgot to tell you. Each references, for example, you have taken one paper, you have to write its citation in the end, just like you usually do in your projects. Okay, so here in this case, the paper number 1, this is my paper, and its citation will be given this way. I'll just show you. Paper number 1 comma 2 in square bracket, paper number 3. You have to write every paper number in a square bracket. Okay, now if you have a doubt like, uh, man, I have used paper number 1 at multiple places in the manuscript, so should I repeat the references in the end? So answer is a big no. You do not have to repeat the references. Once you place the citation of that paper at number 1, you can use square bracket 1 at multiple places. No problem at all. Okay. So references, I have told you how to download, like sorry, how to copy from Sci-Hub or Google Scholar. Okay. So after this, what is the next step? So once we complete the paper, you usually have to check its plagiarism, or you can say the similarity reports. Okay, so in usual case, what happens, the 10% limit of plagiarism, like similarity with internet sources, is allowed. Like by default, all international publishers, they expect you to keep your plagiarism below 10% or around 10% are the processes. Okay, so for example, I'll just show you one interface. Okay, this interface might not be very similar to the others, but yes, this is the usual case you might encounter. Okay, for example, in Elsevier, okay, usually editorial manager is used. Okay, now for example, this is one editorial manager for the journal. Okay, I'm just directly taking you to the interface where usually papers are uploaded. Okay, I'll show you the journal as well, just for example, like how these journal pages look like and how to access. So, see, this is a journal, materials today proceedings. Okay, and if you click submit your paper, it will directly take you to this interface, and you usually have to go and register first, like your corresponding author. Like if you are working with a faculty, then usually that faculty will upload the paper in the journal. Okay, and you will receive a mail regarding the notification like yes, your paper has been submitted, and you will see your paper in this submissions being processed. And then if like the peer review will be started. Now what is peer review? Peer review is usually uh, two people or four people will be there reading your paper and giving criticism to it. Some might be speaking for your paper, some might speak against your paper. Okay. So what happens in peer review, like this is for assessing your paper if your paper is not bogus or includes appropriate information for publishing. Now, for example, I'll show you one interface where one peer review for my paper was conducted, and we got appropriate criticism like what has to be improved, what things are to be done. So this is one interface I'm going to show you. Now, for example, reviewer 1. Okay. So initially we got this evaluation after peer review. Like, yeah, these things, current grammatical punctuation error should be eliminated. Author should write complete terms for abbreviations. Like these kind of criticism has to be given. The author should include the challenges, perspective, and solutions of issues, characterization methods, several applications. So these kind of criticism, like are whatever things are important and which have been left out. So these things have to be appropriately like you have to deal with them instantly as soon as possible within the given deadline. Like usually they give you a deadline of 2 weeks to 21 days. Okay. In between like revision. Okay. During the peer review, the first round concludes, and then you get a revision phase, and then second round is started. Then you will understand like yeah, after like making these revisions, if my paper gets accepted, it will directly get published. Or if not, even after second review round, they might again ask you to do the revision, like this revision is not accepted, you please make these changes immediately. Okay. So like criticism is a lot. Now, for example, you can see in peer review, the criticism will be extreme. Now, this person has given us the worst ratings. Okay. So you need to be very, very sure about like what has to be done, how to do. Okay. Your workflow should be very appropriate. Okay. So yeah, peer review is very, very difficult part. Initially, your paper goes to the editor whenever your paper is uploaded into the journal. If editor accepts, then only your paper will go for peer review, or else in usual case your paper gets rejected within a week. Okay. And peer review process can take from 1 month to 4 months. Okay. So it's really not mandatory that you can get your paper instantly published. So you better check if your paper gets instantly published like within 1 day, 2 day. That journal is a predatory journal, which is not really good for your CV. Okay. So you should rather avoid those journals. Okay. So it's very important you assess all the journals. Okay. And now, after understanding everything, plagiarism removal. Now I'll tell you the most important thing just after the manuscript completion. There is a software called Turnitin software, which will be usually used to check your plagiarism. For example, I can show you one. So let this PDF open. I'll show you. Like each line is highlighted, like what part of this paper is copied, how much it's copied, and from what internet source. So sometimes you might see Like you have copied everything from the internet in your assignment, and you have just submitted your paper like 30 pages, 40 pages, and you tell like, yeah, I have done this much, but you end up getting like 6 out of 10, 3 out of 10. Sometimes faculties, what they do, they use the plagiarism software, just like here. See, this is copied, or this is like already on the internet. There are two meanings only, like this is copied or this is directly on the internet. Just like you can see the highlights. Okay, and in the end you get the similarity percentage. Like see, 31% similar to internet sources. Okay, so this should be 10% or lower. Okay, like every single source has been shown, like from this paper, this research paper, this website, it has been copied. Okay, so this software is very powerful and it's not available for students currently. It's mostly with faculties or research students like MTech PhD students. Okay, they are usually not given to BTech students. Okay, so these are the details you should be knowing regarding research, from starting the paper to ending of the paper, like plagiarism removal, then applying for a publisher, and then peer review. Peer review is very, very like critical. Okay, like in peer review they will criticize your paper like anything. Okay, I'm repeating this, but yes, your paper will be criticized like anything. Okay, so you need to be very like precise with your work, and every single detail in your paper should be cross checked at least 3 to 4 times, so that you avoid the most part of the criticisms, like grammatical errors or lack of information at some points. So these things you have to work on as you go. Okay, so I think this is it. Thank you very much for listening. This is once again Utkarsh Chadda from Krishan Lal Chadda Memorial, Bharatvarsh. Thank you very much.